Hey folks, I'm Gary Carlin, owner of Moss's Creek Outdoors. Stick around here for several minutes. This is going to be kind of more like a memorial type video for an extremely close hunting slash outdoor friend of mine for the past 27 years. So stick around for the next few minutes and we'll get started right now. I'm going to be speaking on behalf of Mr. Dail O'Gwynn. He's an extremely close hunting slash outdoor friend of mine and has been for the past 27 years. I didn't know it'd been that long until I started counting back, and it's hard to believe how time gets by and with a friend and having fun and making memories in the in the outdoors. I'm probably going to start on he growed up in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, which is, I don't know, it's probably not far from me. It's our way, a little more. It's just on this side of Nashville, coming back toward where I am. And he spent his life growing up there as a kid, and once upon a time up there, he was one of our state game wardens in that area, and he really enjoyed that job, and he ended up going to Alaska, and that was one of the biggest adventures of his life. He spoke about Alaska for years and years, or the whole time that I knew him. I mean, it was Alaska, 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 and he always talked about how he wanted to go back, how much he enjoyed it up there, and it just endless as far as things to do, and just unbelievable. And he talked about for years, going back to Alaska, going back to Alaska. He spent several years up there hunting and trapping, and his son Jacoby was up there with him. I think, best I remember hearing, 3 to 5 times with him or something like that, and he told a lot of stories over the years, and shared a lot of memories. And I remember one time he told me a story about him and this other guy, and I can't remember if his son Jacoby was along or not. I didn't ask Jacoby the other day when I talked to him. I mentioned the story to him, but they came up on these 2 little bear cubs. They were really, really small, and somehow or another there, I don't know anywhere even close to the full details on a lot of this. I just know kind of just a rough idea from him telling quick little stories. But they came up on these 2 little bear cubs out there, and somehow or another they had discovered that the mother had been killed. So they ended up getting some guys to fly in on a plane and get those bear cubs and take them and take care of them and all that, because they were extremely small, and they knew that they just, those cubs would die because they were still severely dependent upon their mother. But another thing that Dail mentioned was about the wolf. That's probably one of the number one stories that'll always stick with me. And remember, he said that, I believe it was him and Jacoby. And Dail said he looked at this wolf. This wolf was just bearing down on him, just staring him right dead in the face. And he said that had to be one of the most intelligent creatures that he had ever made eye contact with. It was just the expression that wolf had on his face, and just bearing down, making eye contact with him. And he said it just unbelievable encounter. But he always talked about that and those different stories, and what a wonderful time it was. And another story there that I happen to remember just then is Dail said he was staying in a camp up there, a little cabin. He said he was like 1.5 to 2 miles from camp one morning. He'd get up every morning, run traps, stuff like that. But he was that far from camp. Temperature was, I believe he said, 30 below zero. And he stepped on some ice, and he busted and fell through and got soaking wet. And he said the only thing that saved him was he was wearing solid wool. He said that wool will keep you warm from head to toe, even if it's wet. And he said that was the only thing that saved him, and for him to be able to make it all the way back to camp. If it hadn't been for that wool, he said he, probably would have died out there. Oh, but it's been so many years and years and years of memories, and him talking about Alaska and what a beautiful country that it was out there, and Jacoby plans to return to where him and his dad was so many years ago, and here soon. And I'm sure that'll be quite an experience. It's a long ways up there. I think Dail, he drove from Murfreesboro, Tennessee to Alaska back and forth 4 or 5 times. I believe he said 5 times. And he said it was a long ride. The next thing here I'm going to talk about is when he come back down to this area after he left Alaska. And I believe he said he came back through and landed at the airport there in Memphis, Tennessee. He was sitting there waiting. I don't know if it was for sure, if it was to get on another plane to fly him maybe on to Nashville, or if he was going to go come by car from there on up to here. But anyway, he was sitting there at the airport. He said there was a little newspaper laying there on the table. And he got to thinking, man, he said, I sure would like to find me a cabin to live in, with a lake in front of it. And he got to flipping through that paper, and there it was, cabin for rent, with 200 or 300 acres with a lake. And he said, well, that's just perfect. I'll go through on my way home back to Murfreesboro. I'll stop and look at that. So he did. He ended up renting that place. Rented it many, many years. Really enjoyed it there. It was exactly what he wanted. It was his paradise. He was just exactly where he wanted to be. He was doing what he wanted to do. And he lived there probably a couple of years. I didn't know who he was. And matter of fact, I was friends with another guy up the road from Dail, probably 2 or 3 miles. And I was over with that friend or that guy one day, and Dail went by. And I seen him go up and down the road a whole lot. And I asked the other guy, I said, who is that guy? I said, he goes up and down the road all the time. He's always in a little truck, don't never have anybody with him. He started telling me around about one thing and led to another, and I found out, kind of who he was. So at that time, I was already in the game call business, but I wasn't to put it officially, putting my name / engraving my name on my calls at that time. And he was running a business, Dail was, called Dail Lodge. And what he done sand casting on bronze. He done extremely custom bronze work. Uh, he had a furnace. He ordered big bronze in big bars, and he had a furnace. He put it in, melted it down. It come up to, like, I don't know. It seemed like he said 28, 2900 degrees, something like that. It gets so hot, couldn't hardly stand and look at it. But anyway, he'd have these sand molds. He would go around and he would pour that bronze in, and he would pour custom bronze belt buckles, plaques, grave markers. He'd pour anything you wanted as long as got, some artwork drawn up, of the plan. And usually the smaller the details on far as the letters and the design or logo or whatever, the better it turned out. You wouldn't think it would be that way, but that's the way it was. So he stayed really, really busy with that. Had customers all over the country, and it was unbelievable to see what he could do, as far as pouring up those belt buckles and all of that. And he was so deep into it that I actually nicknamed him Belt Buckle one time, and he knew that. But what I'm getting at here, going back to the calls again, the game calls, I knew kind of what he done, there to say, and I drove over to see him one day. I had a call with me, and met him for the first time, and I kind of got to talking to him about, you have any ideas how I can put my name on these calls, since you're involved with some type of work, that's involving, lettering and stuff like that. So it's been so long ago, I can't remember exactly what he said that day. But that's how I got to know him, and we pretty much kicked it off from there, and became extremely good hunting friends, and shared a lot of memories in the woods together, like I have with some other buddies of mine that's gone now. And it sure is hard to have these hunting partners to pass away on you, and you have so many memories, and so many things happens out there. There's so many things that goes on that you remember, and I think you can make more memories out in the woods together with a friend or a buddy like that than you can anywhere. You wouldn't think that one man could hit another man so hard straight in the heart, but I guarantee you, I've had 2 or 3 that's done it. You wouldn't think it could happen, but it can. All right, I'm gonna tell you a quick few more minutes here about a couple of turkey hunts that me and Dail had. This is after we got to hunt together real good here. I hope I can make it through this. If I quit talking or get quiet, for a few seconds or something, you'll know things is a little emotional. Hopefully I'll hold up through this, though. Out of all the turkey hunts, we had 2 turkey hunts that I really, really remember. It was one hunt each day, 2 days, killed a turkey both days. I'm going to tell you about the story here and tell you what we done. The first one, we was on the property where he was living, and I remember when I first started going over there with him hunting turkeys, and you could just, like, right after daylight, you could just, like, stand on his front porch. It had a cabin, had a kind of a deck porch on the front of it. You could go over and stand on that right after daylight, and you'd hear, two turkeys that way, 2 turkeys this way, 2 turkeys over this way, 1 or 2 the other direction. You just kind of pretty much have to pick out which one you was going after. And I mean, it'd be like 7 or 8 of them, sometimes more than that. But we heard this one, went after him. Of course, 3 or 4 hours, nothing happened. So this other guy lived down the road, And he said, well, let's about 9 or, well, it was later than that. 10:30, 11 o'clock that morning. He said, let's ride down there and see if so-and-so's home. So we'll go down there and talk to him. So Dail was already buddies with him. So he was kind of more or less hinting around, for him to tell us to, to go on to turkey hunt back there on his place. So we went in, we sat down at the kitchen table. That guy and his wife, we were sitting there drinking a cup of coffee and I think eating a moon pie. And the guy had a field right behind his house. And every few minutes, Dail would stand up and he would look out the kitchen window at that field. So he stood up once or twice, 3 times, something like that. One of the times he stood up, he said, there's a turkey walking up the backside of that field. And then he jerked his binoculars up and he said, man, he said, look, what a beard on that thing. So we dashed the coffee out, throwed the pie wrapper in the trash, went dashing out of the house, jumped in the Jeep, run up to the top of the hill, whipped over on the side and parked. There was a steep grade. We went nearly sliding off down that grade, and that turkey was going up that field, going toward where that grade was going down into a creek bottom right there. I told him, I said, we go down right here, we can go down, we can slide down right in front of him, and wait on him. We got down there at the bottom of that hill, and I called one little time. And it was within a half a minute or so, I guess, I saw that turkey. There was a huge fallen oak tree about 30 yards in front of me. And Dail sat down just slightly to my right and behind me. And the bottom of the body of that tree was maybe 3 feet off the ground. And when I looked up and across, all I could see was the turkey's legs under that tree. And he was coming right straight for us. And he stepped right in there and come right out behind that tree, and I just shot him right there. But so we picked the turkey up, looked at him. Dail said, well, he said, the way this deal happened, he said, we might ought to carry this one back up there and show it to those folks. So that's what we done. We got back in Jeep there, took the turkey back down there to the house. I walked up there, threw the turkey down at the back doorstep. The guy's wife come out. She said, let's see, what was it? She said the beautiful gobbler said, I heard him when he gobbled this morning. Said he was back across the canal, behind the house. So that's kind of how that story wound up. The next story here, we went about 3 or 4 miles from that previous story there, up the road. We got out on a piece of ground that I got. There was a turkey gobbled back on the back side of it. You go through a road, had some pines on both sides, and then you get to the back, it kind of opened up into a little timber hardwood flat on the back side. There was a turkey back there. So we didn't have no luck getting him, but I went back the next morning. Dail, there was a spot right there come up. Dail couldn't hunt for 5 or 6 days or something. I can't remember what it was there. But I went back that next morning. I sat down at the same tree. I think it was 5 mornings in a row, and called that turkey. That turkey would come up the bottom from the other direction. He would come up to a certain point. He was fairly close to me, but I couldn't ever see him. And every single one of those mornings, he come up to the same dead spot, but would not come any closer. So I decided that morning, after he went back off from where he came from, I decided about 12 o'clock that day I was going to go back over there, and I was going to walk out there in that bottom, and I was going to see what was stopping him. It was where he was coming from was off the property, and he was coming up to me. So I went back over there, and there's a little like a little ridge or a crest or whatever you want to call it out in that bottom. It was kind of coming up from the other direction, coming out and then down off the end and the sides. and it was flat on the top of it with some hardwood timber standing on it. That turkey, he was coming out on that toe, overlooking that bottom, and he wouldn't leave it. So I called Dail and told him about what happened. And told him, I said, we're going to have to get in there and we're going to have to be sitting right at the bottom of that when that turkey comes in there. That way he'll be in range. So that next morning, went back, Dail went with me. We sit there, I called to that turkey, and here he came. He done the same thing. He come right up on that little crest. But that morning, he come around a little bit on the left side of it and looked like he was going to come kind of around and down a little bit maybe. So he came around on that left side a little bit. Well, Dail was sitting at the butt of a poplar tree about 10 yards from the bottom of that slope coming down that turkey was on. And I was sitting by a tree maybe 10 yards to Dail's right and behind him. And that turkey kind of raised his head up one little time, like he knew there was something there, but he wasn't sure. By that time, Dail already had his shotgun up, and he popped him. Of course, turkey rolled down the bank. But it was so cold that morning. It was about as cold as, that's probably the second coldest morning that I've ever turkey hunted on. It felt more like a deer season. But Dail's hands was so cold from holding that gun that morning that he shot that turkey, and before we even moved, Dail pulled his matches out. He smoked those Dutch Master Cameroon cigars all the time. He piled up a little bitty pile of sticks, about half big as a basketball, right there on the ground, and he set that little pile of sticks on fire. He built that little fire. He got down on his knees, and he was holding his hands like that over that little fire to get his hands warm. So that's pretty much how that one ended up. But I could go on and on and on and tell some more, but that's probably the two that stuck in my mind the most. So we got a kind of a memorial video coming up here in just a minute. I talked to Jacoby, Dail's son, the other day, and Jacoby sent me some pictures from Alaska that I never seen before. And make sure that you watch until the video completely ends, because I've got some long durations between these photos. Some of the photos, I hold them pretty long, and so make sure and watch all the way to the tail end till it shuts off, or you're liable to miss something. So all I can say is Dail, I'm gonna miss you a lot. Enjoy Alaska forever, my friend. So until next time, I'm Garen Carlin, owner of Mosses Creek Outdoors. I've enjoyed speaking on behalf of such a wonderful friend of mine. And stick around for the video, and we'll see you next time.